Well water, city water, bottled water, what do they got in common? They're probably all good and they probably won't make you sick. But for over 1 billion people in this world, that's not an option. And that's what we're here to talk about today on Service Above Self. Hi and welcome to Service Above Self. I'm Clark Mason. Rotary clubs all over the world will often participate in water projects because over 1 billion people in this world don't have availability of clean water. Here to talk about that with us today is Rick Lawrence, a member of the Rotary Club of Manchester, Connecticut, and District Water and Sanitation Chairperson for District 7890. Welcome, Rick. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Clark. Great to see you.
Good to see you as well. How long has Rotary been involved with clean water?
Well, this dates back to the 2003-2004 year when the president of Rotary International felt that clean water and sanitation projects should become an emphasis for clubs and districts throughout the world. And as you and some of your listeners may have seen in the past, Rotary has been involved with Polio Plus to get rid of polio. And that really has started to become a solution around the world. And now water is going to be the biggest emphasis that Rotary has.
Now, water certainly seems to be, a big problem. Many of the documentaries that I've seen will show situations, particularly in Africa and other developing areas, where people may have to walk as far as 5 miles to get potable water. And then return. So in many cases, this can lead to problems where girls, for instance, were often given the task of going to fetch the water, are not able to participate in school because of that.
Yes, that's true. A lot of times it's the mothers and the children who have to spend an inordinate amount of time walking to get clean, potable drinking water. And so much of their time is wasted, really, unless there is a source nearby.
And in many cases, that water may not even be all that clean.
That's correct. That's another problem, yes.
So what are the types of things that the local Rotary clubs and district doing to improve that situation around the world?
Well, in our District 7890, there are 5 or 6 different projects that clubs are working on, and they're in various parts of the world, and they are available by going to our district website. Some of them are in Southeast Asia, others in Africa. And I, for one, have been chairing, now it's for 4 completed years, we're now in our 5th year, projects in the Central American country of Guatemala.
And how did you personally get involved with that?
Well, it actually was interesting. I started by making up a meeting at the Rotary Club of Antigua, and they of course gave me one of their little flags. We exchanged these flags, and at that time I was on vacation. I received, we exchanged business cards, and that club gave me a CD-ROM that had information about what their club projects were. The next week I came back to the Manchester Club, and our president at the time announced 2 initiatives that the district governor had proposed for our district. One of those was that every Rotary club in our district get involved with a water project, and secondly, that clubs pool their resources, work together rather than individually. And those 2 initiatives gave me a little bit of a spark, I guess, in my mind, and I wondered if perhaps in Guatemala they had worked on this. Rotary Club of Antigua had worked on projects. So I put the CD back in my computer when I got home that night, and sure enough they had. I got in touch with them and through email, and they said that they had been working on water projects, but they were not able to participate because the number of people they had and where they were in location in relation to where these projects would be held. What they did do is they put me in touch with BPD, Bearhorst Partners for Development. Let's go to the slides and I can help describe it a little better. As I had mentioned, this is the 5th year that we're working on these water projects, and they're in various villages in Guatemala. I won't try to confuse people with their pronunciation at this time. What I would like to emphasize, though, is that the track record we've had with the 4 years completed to date, the Rotary clubs in our district have raised over $110,000. And as you see, it's helped 260 families, and they average about 350 people in each of them. Last year, we worked on a project and started out with this nonprofit whose name was given to us by the Rotary Club of Antigua, Bearhorst Partners for Development. And I'll use the BPD as an easier way to do that. And Bearhorst gave us this budget for this project, Mokalik Shot Alto. And one of the things I like to emphasize when I make my presentations is that this is a sharing of a project that money is just not given to a community so they can then put in a water project. The municipality, the local residents, and BPD work with us as the Rotarians. Although we're the largest funding source, everybody has to share. And I like to use the expression that people often hear that if you give a man a fish, he has a meal. But if you teach him to fish, he can feed himself for a lifetime. So these people have to buy into the fact that they actually contribute an awful lot of the labor, but some of the money also. So something isn't just given to them. And this development budget has been prepared by Bearhorst. And last year, believe it or not, one of the most interesting things that happened just about in May, when we were ready to turn over all of the checks to BPD, they came up with 2 private foundations that were willing to match dollar for dollar the Rotary funds, similar to Rotary International's matching grants. And these 2 private foundations essentially more than doubled our money, and we had raised $29,500 for a total of $63,000, and we were able to get 2 villages accomplished in terms of the water and sanitation projects. Now, most people, when they fly into Guatemala, go into Guatemala City, which is the main international arrival. We have stayed, when we go, in the old historic capital of Antigua, which is somewhat southwest. Now, to get to these villages up in the northern highlands, it's about a 2, sometimes 2.25 hour drive. And the Rotary Club of Antigua, although we tried to work with them, they work on projects that are, generally speaking, within an hour's drive of their own town or city. And that's why it makes it so much more difficult. And that's why teaming up with BPD, who we did check with Rotary International, because Rotary doesn't just give money away to other private nonprofits. And BPD has had a stellar track record in the past, founded by a Dr. Bearhorst in 1967, and they've been working with the indigenous Mayans ever since then.
Right, so that's always a big thing, is that there's accountability in this.
Absolutely.
So with many of these projects, the local Rotary Club in the area that's receiving this grants and benefits will actually help to administrate it, but this wasn't the case with this one. It was an outside organization that did it.
That's absolutely correct.
But we're all sure that it got done.
Absolutely, yes. Now, I show this slide, picture of the palace in downtown Guatemala, because the architecture, of course, is influenced by the 300 years that Spain dominated their society and their language was adopted, and also to contrast with what some people will see later on in the show, some of the very meager living conditions that people live that are far out into the northern highlands. And these are the roads. When we go to visit these villages, we have to go in a 4-wheel drive truck because it is in pretty much back country. Now, the first village that we'll be showing you is Mokalik Shot Alto, and I'll just call it Mokalik from now on. That'll be easier, I'm sure.
That's good enough for me.
The most important factor here is the last one, that the women and the children, before we did this project, had to walk, as you were talking about, 50 minutes each way every day just to get drinking water. Now, I just can't imagine getting up in the morning and having to walk that distance just to brush your teeth or to shave and so forth. Mm-hmm. In the other village, Petzocom, it was a little better. 35 minutes was the walking distance. but you can see the population primarily agricultural, and there's very little transportation. When we visited these villages, they put on their whole royal production, if you will. It is an event that is a true celebration for them, and one of thankfulness to us, and I represent, of course, many Rotary clubs. This picture is very typical of what happens when we arrive. The school children are all lined up, and notice what's on the ground. The first time we went to one of the villages in Cahomacha, the next night we met with the Rotarians who put me in touch with BPD, and their first question was, were there fresh green pine needles on the ground? And my wife and I said, yeah, why? And they said, that is the indigenous Mayans' red carpet.
Wow.
So that's the treatment we get. And as you see, the children and their faces are happy. Thanks to the Rotarians and the money that's been contributed and the cooperative nature of these projects, they don't have to walk those long distances to get water every day. And it makes a tremendous difference in their lives. And every one of these villages, they insist on having a presentation, a thankful event. And again, here you can see the pine needles. They put on songs and dances, and notice the color, the native costumes. The Guatemalans weave patterns that have been woven in certain villages for hundreds of years, and they can tell where somebody is from based on the color and the patterns of what they're wearing.
Much in the same way as a Scottish tartan, I suppose.
Absolutely, exact same idea, yeah. And then they insist on giving us presents. In the upper right corner, the woman there has given me a hat, and in the lower left corner, my wife is given this beautiful woven tablecloth that's in front of us here. The first order of business when we can give them something is that we have these plaques that are made up before we go that have engraved on them all of the Rotary clubs that have contributed the funds. They then take these and bring them and permanently mount them on their water systems. And this is the water committee, and in many of the villages, half of the committee are men and half are women. And we have made this more of a humanitarian project also. My wife and I have felt that it's important to bring items that would help them now that especially the children, can stay in school. And here we're giving dictionaries to the 3 teachers at this particular school. Many of the Rotary clubs have a project called the Dictionary Project, and they give these to 3rd graders. There is a Spanish-English version, and this is what we're giving to them here. We also bring maps of the world, the solar system, coloring books, crayons, pencils, anything you can think of that school children would love to have, and the teachers are just thrilled by this. We bring soccer balls, that is the favorite sport, of course, of the boys, and basketballs for the girls. The money that we buy these from are from the sales of these handicraft items I have displayed in front of us here. We bring back these hacky sacks, these necklaces, and there's others such as little change purses. And when people have heard our presentation, we ask for a donation of, say, $10, and all of that goes into buying these gifts for these village people.
That's very interesting. So what exactly is it that you do with a water project like this?
There are 4 components. The first one, and most important, of course, is bringing water, fresh, clean water into the homes of these people. This is what it's like before. The children are carrying these jugs that are heavy for, as we said, 35 or 50 minutes each way to get water. And what is done in the left picture in Mokalik, they found a spring coming out of the rock, and they have enclosed that, and the pipe down near my foot brings it down into the village. In Patsocombe, on the right, they built what's called a catchment tank. It's about 200 to 300 feet in vertical elevation above the village. The water is pumped out of a spring, and that acts as the pressure vessel, similar to what we have water tanks around our area.
Right.
And then the water has a big reservoir if a lot of people are using it at one time, and the pump fills it up
And
over time.
it simply needs to flow downhill from there, as it were.
From there, right. And here you can see they're opening up one of the spigots, and notice again the fresh pine needles that they've put out for us. Now, the money that is given also helps what you might call the local economy. Some people call it the trickle-down effect. This gentleman on the left here, Cesar Camino, has 2 men working for him. He casts these 3-compartment sinks. The village members have to put in some of the money in addition to what we give them, and then what they do is they put them in each one of the homes. And we went back a second time and gave him a picture, and he was absolutely thrilled to see us every year because now he has more work to do, and he helps their employment. And here's, again, a very happy family in front of their sink. It's not as clean, but it's well used.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
And here is the plaque that's been put on one of the parts of the water system in one village, and in the other, this is the catchment tank. You can see the cement is still a little fresh where they've mounted that there. The second part are gray water filters. Once water is used on the sinks and you have grease and soap and oils in them, you want to separate that and not just put it back onto the surface.
What types of problems does it cause if those substances, the grease and the soap, end up getting into runoff?
Well, it doesn't cause infestation of insects and disease-borne infections can be created and so forth. Another part of this is that the people have to learn how to take care of these. Now, what they do is they build this little filtering system, similar to, you might call it, a septic tank. And the grease and the oil rises to the surface and the water goes out. Mm-hmm. And they are trained and they have to clean these every few months so that that doesn't get into the system. They can use what's called then the gray water because it's been used for irrigation, but most of the time they put it back into the soil so it gets filtered out. The third component are vented, improved pit latrines. Many of these people have very poor sanitation facilities. And again, our friend Cesar Camino casts the toilet. Some might call it a throne. There's a square section and then the toilet. The men in the village have to dig the hole that goes down 5 meters, which is close to 18 feet.
Wow.
And the square part gets put on the top of it, and then the toilet seat gets put on top of that. In the middle of this picture, the woman in the white, her name is Marilee, and Nata is the gentleman in the white shirt. They're the 2 people from BPD who bring us up to these villages, and we've made all the arrangements with them, and they coordinate the in-field work. Nata would be more like a field engineer. Every day he's going up there to see that the pipe is brought in the concrete and so forth. So he's construction oriented. This is what I would say is before. I mean, this is 4 bamboo stakes with plastic and essentially a hole in the ground. That's what they had for toilet facilities. Afterwards, there you can see the square base, the toilet. This one has a nice oak seat, a cover I should say. And there's an orange pipe that goes up and that vents the odors up into the atmosphere.
Now, with this type of a setup, is the effluent, does that seep into the soil, or are they really looking for it to evaporate?
Some of it does seep in, and I believe they train them to put chemicals in so that similar to national parks where they have outhouses like this. Mm-hmm. But it will take an awful long time for this to be needing cleaning out.
Right.
And the fourth component really doesn't have much to do with water, but it is very important to these people, and that is providing these safe stoves. This is what I mentioned about the type of houses that they live in. They're pretty meager with tin roofs. You can see the smoke that's billowing out of here because they're cooking right in the corner of the room.
So this is a case where they have something not unlike a campfire just in the open room.
Absolutely. And I'm walking you through a living room, and notice there's no widescreen TV. There's no computer, no satellite radio. And I mean, these are they do have electricity. But then this is the kitchen, and this is what causes the smoke. Children get respiratory diseases, eye infections. They can trip and get burned because this is just an open fire where they have their tortillas. And the benefit, of course, is here you see a much bigger stove. There's a pipe that vents it to the atmosphere that's insulated so the kids can't get burned on it. And here's a smaller one. This is called the O'Neill stove. The other is called a Peace Corps stove. And if you notice the pipe on here, this has a wire mesh so you can't get burned on it. And my wife is being offered some hot tortillas, freshly cooked.
Yeah, you know, you tend to think that something like that is, you know, not really a complicated thing, but I had seen something on television recently where use of something like that in Mexico, in some of the remote areas, actually helped to reduce the wood use by about 1/6.
That is thank you for bringing that up. I was told that it's 70% less wood is used because of that. Excellent point. And of course, that helps the whole environment too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're concerned about, in many cases, deforestation in those areas, the addition of the simple technology of a wood stove, basically, is actually saving materials and natural resources.
Right. And the end of our visits are typically like this, where we break bread and have a meal with them. You can see Nata is in the red shirt. Marilee is next to him in this picture with the black coat. And we are the center of attraction because of what we have done and helped them in their villages. I'd like to also mention that the children are emphasized in the beginning of my presentation, but here I show you an old gentleman who comes up to us, and in my very limited amount of Spanish, I could tell he is saying, "I thank you every day for what you have done." It just is unbelievable how welcoming, how appreciative these are. In the first village that we went to in Cohomacha, there was an older gentleman who has been trying to get water to his village since 1959.
Wow.
And finally, in 2006, 2007, they got it. And when Ellen and I were there, he called us the angels from America. That really touches your heart.
It's nice to be liked somewhere. Yeah. But, you know, that's you just can't overemphasize that how much this simple thing that we take for granted is so important for basic health and in some cases education,
Yes.
And general welfare in parts of the developing world. You know, so it's just something that is absolutely imperative that, you know, we do it even one village at a time, and that's certainly a thrust of what Rotary clubs around the world do.
Yes, yes. These 4 components that we have given to them or work with them will change their whole lives, because BPD works with them and they gain their trust and they use it as a catalyst. What they end up doing is, now that the women and the children have more time, BPD starts to give them what they call, they start to create strong family centers. And that's where they will teach nutrition, some health education, proper meal planning, and the balance of vegetables and meat and so forth, sanitation, how to take care of the components that they have. And all of this then raises their whole quality of life, just because the water is the entree that
That's just step number 1.
Absolutely.
And it just shows you that's the basics. You know, if you don't have to fetch water, you can go to school and then you can read. And so that's just the very basic building blocks of what it takes to build a, you know, an improved society.
Yes.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, Rick. If someone wanted to get involved or help with a project like this, who should they contact?
Well, I would be glad to be the source to have them get a hold of me. I believe you will be having my name and address on the show towards the end, and they can send me an email and get a hold of us that way. If they are a member of a Rotary Club and they would like to have their club participate, that's another option too.
So absolutely. Almost all Rotary clubs are charged with the task of participating in a water project somewhere, either domestically or somewhere around the world.
We are hoping so.
Yes, absolutely. And in case in this area you were mentioning earlier that many clubs will join together and to do this.
And as you've seen with what we have raised, some clubs, based on their membership, their interest in how much they want to support an international project, and their ability to come up with funds, it varies. Every club gives a different amount, sometimes every year. But what we've done is we've pooled those together and we've raised anywhere from $24,000 to $29,500. And that's the leverage we get by pooling it all together to get these accomplished.
Well, there you go. It's just like eating an elephant. One bite at a time is the way to do it. And even if it's one village at a time, we can improve that. Thanks, Rick, for coming on and telling us about all this. It's certainly an interesting thing. Feel free to contact any Rotary Club to find out about how international water projects are done. So that's about it for this time around. For myself, Clark Mason, and everyone here at Service Above Self, we're encouraging you to find a worthy cause and lend a helping hand.
When you start with Rotary, good things happen. Rotary's ordinary people working together to clean the environment, stop disease, and accomplish other extraordinary things.
This is a tree that was never chopped down to make a crutch that was never needed by a child who never got polio because medicine was never in short supply, thanks to people whose compassion wasn't either. Over the past 20 years, Rotary Club members have helped immunize over 2 billion children against polio. Thanks to them, the world will soon be polio-free. Rotary, humanity in motion.